I am Daniel Griggs. This is the ATX, the brand, and today we're talking again about branding because that's what we do. So to be more specific, what is branding and why it's important? We'll start with what is branding. Now, one of the things that if you Google search this and you look it up, there's a lot of different people that put it in different ways. My just general view and how I want you to really understand branding comes down to this. It's the perception that your potential customers or potential clients have of you based on what you put out there. So there's more than just one part to it. I'll tell you this though, branding is not marketing. Branding is not advertising. Advertisement and marketing is what actually gets attention to your brand. So I'll give a few examples with that as well. But it represents the culture of your company. And you have to understand that basically whatever perception you want for people to have of your company, have of your product, have of your service. And I got a few examples that we'll go over today that I think are going to be really fun. So the number one, we'll talk about this in a few different ways. One, we're going to talk about it in the corporate world. The other one is going to be based on entrepreneurs, but it kind of stems into corporate or small business too. And then the last one we're going to talk about is small business, because a lot of small businesses really feel that they can't do branding because they can't afford it or they don't have the budget for it. But in today's age, when you have this and this, there's not really such thing as you're not able to afford it. You got time and you can put sweat equity into it. So the first thing we'll talk about is the corporate. We talk about branding. It goes into the message and identity. Yeah, that's very general, kind of cliche the way that I'm saying it, but I'll give some examples. The first one I'll talk about is Coca Cola. So Coca Cola, yeah, it's a drink. You have so many people now that just call like, I want a Coke, and they can be talking about any drink, but they've created a brand around like kindness and staying together, etc. So I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about. We'll look at Coca-Cola's Instagram page. So on Coca-Cola's Instagram page, they have this information, and when you're scrolling through it and you see it, and you'll see on my screen, they have the best things in life aren't things, right? So it's bringing people together. The best moments are the ones you can share. Kindness starts with you. Like, they create this culture, which is their brand of bringing people together. And when you bring people together, you do that by sharing a Coke, right? So if you think about it, the taste, like there's drinks, like if you ever go to the movies and have somebody pouring a drink in a Coke, that's a completely different way that they're like marketing to you. You're in the movie theater. That's not really, it's branding, but they're putting marketing and advertisement to go make you get something to drink. But in regards to like their overall brand, when you're talking about their Instagram page, their website, their YouTube page, the things that they put out and the things that they actually present, there's this whole message around it. That message is their brand. Because you recognize that message and because it's going to connect with you, that makes you want to go get their product or their service. Or when you're at a restaurant, you want a Coke. When you're with friends, you want a Coke. When you're having a good time, you want a Coke. And there's a lot of different beverage companies that do it. But of course, Coca-Cola has solidified themselves just around being kind and sharing this moment. So if I'm sharing a moment with you in a bunch of different scenarios, rather it be romantic, rather it be friends, rather it be hanging out, let's share a Coke, because in this moment, this is how we're just kind of like seize this moment. So Coca-Cola is one of them. They put out a ton of videos. If you go, I'll put some links to the videos that they have. If you look at the videos that they have, everything is centered around that. And it's this unity, whether it be from world unity, a nation, etc. But the Coke is just kind of like, it's the center. It's what brings everything together. So I know I'm speaking about these. If you're watching this and you're an entrepreneur, or if you have a small business, you're like, well, that's Coca-Cola. They have the budget to do all of these things. I'll get to how you can do the same thing as well. Now, going on kind of to the next one, these are a few other ones that really capture my attention. Old Spice. I think I may have bought Old Spice one time. The only reason I bought it is because they were locked in my mind. Now, this is, when you talk about what is branding, and I said it's the perception that others get, but that message, that brand message, is what you drive into the minds in the middle, just the mental capacity of someone. So Old Spice, the first thing comes to my mind is that whistle, that sound right there. And then you understand when you watch the commercials of Old Spice and the things that they put out, especially in the video, they do a ton of video content. It's based on like, this is what a real man smells like. This is what a real man does. They have the guy, he's like half man, half horse, right? It's humor because they want to draw your attention. They want to capture your attention in that way. But the message that they bring across for men is that like, this is our target audience. And we can't just say it's going to have you smell good or, right? They have like, this is what a real man smells like. And it's based on women being attracted to that. But it's this very humorous way that captures your attention. But the brand message, I'll go back to that, is this is what a real man smells like. This is what a real man wears. And then they kind of drive when I'm talking about the mental capacity of keeping you intact with, what's the best way to put it? The best way to recognize it, the whistle that I just did. If you hear that whistle, you'll immediately know that that's Old Spice because they drove that into your head every single time. When you're creating a brand and you're putting a brand out, which trust me, this is long term. This isn't anything short term. You continue to present the same message over and over in different ways, but it's always the same message. But there's always something that locks into your mind that makes you recognize them. Coca Cola, for the most part, they don't have something as deliberate like it's Old Spice with the whistle, but others that you think about is like Affleck. As soon as I hear Affleck, I think about the duck. Ben Affleck is an actor. When I hear his last name, I think about the duck, and I'm thinking about the insurance company, whatever it is that they do. I don't even know everything what they do, but I know the duck, and so it immediately makes me think of it. The Allstate, I only recognize the guy because I know the movie Love and Basketball, but we're in good hands. My voice isn't that deep. But look, the guy has a tone that sticks in your mind. And when you hear you're in good hands or we're in good hands or whatever it is, I always remember the good hands, you immediately think of Allstate. So our headquarter location is in Austin. And really in any city, car salesmen always, or these car companies, they always do radio ads. And I hear this guy, I know you, what do you hear, Chris, on the radio guy in Austin all the time. He has an annoying voice. I'm not being mean, but honestly, maybe he does it on purpose because it locks in your head. It's about 2 or 3 different ones. I'm gonna have to get the links to them, but I always hear this radio, this guy on the radio, and he does this very corny stuff. He does like these hip hop little skits and things, and they're very corny. But he does it repetitively, and he does it in different ways. And he has this continuous slogan. Man, it'll come to me. But when I hear it, I immediately know. But one of the main things is that I know this guy's voice. So anything that he does, I recognize his voice every single time. And it's interesting because it's about him and about 2 to 3 other car companies in the Austin area. And they always have those same radio ads. There's one that I do particularly remember because I hear him on the radio, and then I also see billboards of him as well, like around Austin, around Rock area. And I know he's based on, like, he's veteran owned, and he does something towards veterans as well. I'm not a veteran, but I work with a lot of veterans, and that's why I remember that. But these are just examples when I'm talking about corporate companies. Like, yeah, these are big companies that have a big budget, but they've taken the time to really solidify their brand message, and that's the perception that I have of them. When I think of Coke now, I either have a visual image that comes to my mind of somebody pouring a Coke with ice in a glass, or I have this thought of this is a moment, like let's share this moment and have a Coke, right? Sprite, you think about that in a completely different way. I know Sprite from earlier years. When I was growing up, Sprite, I remember the Sprite bottles, and when you open up the Sprite bottle and inside the cap, like you can win some. So you take it back to the convenience store, you can win something. They still base a lot of what they do on athletes. So when I see athletes, it's very contradictory. Why would an athlete be drinking Sprite and soda? But anyway, they did a really good job of a lot of athletes and I would say in an urban community per se, to where like they're really big and you drink Sprite a lot. When I was growing up, I remember we used to play a game called Kill a Man. It's basically you get a football, you throw it up in the air, whoever catches it is you against like 10, 12, 15 other people. People call it different things. We called it Kill a Man. We didn't have a football all the time. So we would find random Sprite bottles, because those are things you can find the most. Get a Sprite bottle, we'll fill it up with gravel, tighten the cap on, and that's what we'll play with. They have a really good signature with the brand of the, I guess it's like a lime green color per se, of the bottle. So it's very recognizable. Like, stay with me when I'm talking about brand, because different companies and different people do it in different ways. But when it comes down to it, what happens is that you can recognize their brand in one way or another. Whether it's a whistle, whether it's a slogan, whether it's a voice, whether it's a visual. When I'm talking about the Sprite bottle, I think the latest commercial, they've been very consistent over the years, from the 90s till now with Sprite. I forget some of the older people that are on it, but now I see like LeBron James on it. Like the latest I've seen like a Christmas holiday kind of commercial. Like those are all around our brand, and they've done really good with sticking around that and then just boosting it over the years. Now the next one I'll talk about is entrepreneurs. Now these entrepreneurs that I'll mention, they have a personal brand, but they use their personal brand to leverage their actual company. The first one I'll start with is Grant Cardone. I watch a lot of Grant Cardone. I'm not in real estate, probably because of Grant. I will get in real estate at some time because he gives so much knowledge with it. But he just talks about, he doesn't talk about a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. He talks about a lot of brand things as well, marketing and advertisement. And one of the main things he talks about is that if you're not continuously doing something in regards to advertisement or marketing, if no one knows about you, whether it be your company, whether it be you as the person, then they're not gonna trust you. If you can, the radio ad guy, I continuously hear it. If I'm ever in a situation to where I cannot, if I don't have the credit to get a vehicle, or I don't have the money or something like that, or if I don't have like a big down payment, I would go to him first. Because I'm used to this same thing of like, I think it's like 10 cents to drive off the lot. I forget what it is, or 50 cents, whatever it may be. But he's locked in my head if I get in a situation like that. And I have trust because I hear him all the time. Grant Cardone, I forgot when I kind of got on Grant Cardone and started hearing his messages and stuff, but I started listening to him and here's his information. And a lot of the stuff he says is like spot on. When building a company, he talks about stuff as an entrepreneur, but not so much as an entrepreneur, more towards like when you're building a company, when you're building a brand. But he's one person that puts out a ton of content. And I don't know a lot about his actual companies, but I know a lot about Grant Cardone. So if I come across, like I think he has one to where you can invest with Grant Cardone when it comes to real estate. He does the investment, he pays you out. If I want to get into real estate and I want to do investments, but I don't want to be driving around and like doing it hands on myself, I would invest with Grant Cardone. Because he's created so much content and he's built so much of a brand of himself that now I trust him. And it's like, I trust this guy, so I'm going to trust any business that he does. Now, a few other people is Gary Vaynerchuk. A lot of people are familiar with him. I'm very familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk. I think I first heard of him about 3 years ago. I don't listen to him as much right now. He's great. For me, he's great when he talks about a lot of stuff in entrepreneurship. I focus more on brand and building brands and things like that. But he's built a heck of a lot of attention to himself. And so really anything that he pushes out, I know now he has, of course I have a sports background. I love sports. He has, I think he has his own agency right now, his own sports agency. I know he wants to buy the New York Jets. Like I could care less about the Jets. I'm a Cowboys fan. Don't attack me for that. But if or when he buys the New York Jets, I'll probably pay some kind of attention to him at that point, just because I know Gary Vaynerchuk owns the Jets. I don't know much of what VaynerMedia does, but I know about VaynerMedia because of Gary Vaynerchuk. So it kind of ties into the same thing. His direction, Grant Cardone's direction, completely different. But they've built a brand around themselves, and it drives so much more attention to their actual companies. Two of the other people that I mentioned, one is Chris Do. I want to say I'm saying it right. Chris Do or Do, I can't remember. I don't know. But he runs The Future. The Future is Here. Future, Futur, no E. But he talks about branding and stuff as well. But I've watched him a lot because he talks a lot about agencies, freelancers, designers, etc. That's his whole thing that he talks about. He's built a really great brand with what he has. I know he says that he wants to impact like 1 billion creatives and entrepreneurs and helping them out. But his brand with understanding design, understanding pitching, the whole agency life, the whole freelancer life. He's built an entire brand around teaching people and helping them understand like these are the things that you need to do. And it helps you get over so many hurdles. No, I'm not a freelancer. I do run an agency. I love sales. I'm great at closing on projects and closing on deals, but he's given me so much more fine detailed information that I can close on projects a lot quicker and a lot easier because just like those little small things, whether it be presentation, getting a budget and understanding the budget out of leads and potential clients, etc. The last person I'll mention is Billy Jean. So Billy Jean, this is a guy that I'll say this, when I first seen Billy Jean is marketing, my immediate thought was like, this dude is corny. I seen like one of his ads on Facebook. And this is interesting. Like this is one of the best examples of branding that I'll give out of all of these other entrepreneurs. I get Grant Cardone second place, but I kind of really sought him out more. But it's completely different Billy Jean. But Billy Jean is marketing. I seen one of his ads on Facebook. And at the moment, because I was seeing a lot of like Ty Lopez and Gary Vaynerchuk, I was just like, it's just somebody just trying to copy what they're doing. But then I seen it again, and I seen it on Facebook. Then I seen it on YouTube. Then I seen it on Instagram. And I was just like, man, who is this guy? And what does he actually do? So it made me look into him more. He's not as informational as the way he's informational isn't as informational as Grant Cardone and Gary Vee. He's more sales. Like he's more like hop into this. He always says, buy my shit. He always says that. But the brand that he's created around himself and his knowledge and his transparency and like, this is who we are and what we have as a great product. And the fact that he kept like, digitally, he kept shoving all of his information in my face. All of the little skits and scripts and stuff that he put together. All of that stuff kept being like, I kept seeing it and seeing it and seeing it. And now anything that he puts out, I pay attention to it. Majority of the stuff that he has, I have no intention on buying. I think the only thing that I got into was he had like a live seminar or whatever it was at his studio in San Diego. I wanted to go, but I couldn't get it in my schedule when he had it. I wanted to physically go and go through a day with him just because really I was more interested in how he's built this company. Not exactly interested in doing YouTube ads and all that stuff. Yeah, I want to know about that, but I was more interested in like, how did you build this thing up? How did you completely renovate this area? How did you structure your business? Those are the things I was interested in. So he had this deal to where he did like a live seminar or whatever at his studio, but it is digital. And he was like, you pay $5 and you can watch it. And he was like, yes, I'm going to make you pay $5 or something like that because I want you to have some kind of skin in the game. It's not that much, but if you're not willing to pay $5 to watch this, then you're not willing to actually invest in your company. You're just looking for a handout. And most of the time when people look for a handout, they don't take it as serious. But I understood what he's saying, but I did it. And I was just like, I wanted to get more from him of the energy of like, how did this guy build all of this up? But the purpose and the thing that I'm really the point that I'm trying to get across is this. I wouldn't have even paid that $5. I wouldn't even did if it was free with Billy Jean if he had not taken the time to build his brand and keep it in my face. Now let me put this, as I was talking about earlier, branding is not marketing and it is not advertising. Advertising and marketing is what you do to bring the attention to the brand. And you have to consistently do that to make sure that people pay attention to it. But the branding part is what you structure so that it's memorable. If you do a lot of marketing and advertisement and they don't always complement one another and it's not consistent with the exact same message, that branding is not consistent with the exact same message, you won't lock in people's head. Like they'll see you, but there won't be anything to keep them like memorable of you. That's what I mean by that. But Billy Jean, he did the best job of that, I guess, because when I would see it on Facebook and scrolling down my timeline, YouTube especially, Ty Lopez did it. But I don't know if I maybe wasn't part of his target audience or whatever, but it kind of like, it really fell off. But he is another good person that did a lot of stuff with branding. But Billy Jean is marketing, whatever this dude was spending from ad spend and his skills, I know he's really great at it from everything he puts out there. He did the best job of continuing to like ask for my attention. Next place I would give is Grant Cardone. Chris Doe, I actually got on it. I forgot. I randomly came across something on YouTube. But once I actually came across it on YouTube, I was locked in because he's very knowledgeable and he gives a lot of attention. And then Gary Vaynerchuk, his branding was more around of like, he's a very stay on 100 kind of person. So it kind of captured my attention and it kept me locked in. But each one of these people, and there's plenty more out there, but each one of these people have did something to structure the brand around themselves. I say as an entrepreneur, but structured around themselves as a person, and it brings attention to their company. And that's what helps drive their sales and all types of stuff, because you have trust in them at that point. That's what helps them do speaking engagements and podcasts and other things, because people are going to trust their word based off of all the content and information that they put in, and they've been consistent for what they drive into you. Grant Cardone talks a ton about not just real estate, but talks a ton about building a business. He gives a lot of personal analogies and experiences that he puts on people that people can connect with. And Billy Jean, he puts out a lot of information. He's very straightforward with everything, but it captures your attention. The little globe, and I think it's like an astronaut or something that he has, that stuff, it looks okay, but I've seen it so much that I recognize it. So these people have did really great when they talk about creating their brand. Now, small businesses and entrepreneurs, or when I say entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. One of the questions that I get a lot of times when we're doing things for startups, small businesses that are trying to build up their business, or just those solo entrepreneurs. Yes, you can build a brand of your own, even if you don't have the budget. Now, it may have to come organically, meaning you don't have a $250,000 ad spend budget. But when you get a lot of attention organically, you know that those people are more likely paying more attention than you paying a lot of money and trying to drive them to it. Now, that makes it happen a lot faster in regards to paying people for ad spend to come and pay attention to your brand. But you can build up your brand without having a huge budget. You're not a Coca Cola. You're not a Grant Cardone or a Billy Jean, but the thing is that you need to think about the message and what you want people to remember you by. Now, this can be a phrase, a slogan, maybe a visual when you're talking about like Sprite, because they recognize the actual product, but you need to first understand, what do I want to be memorable for my brand? Once you understand that, what's the platforms that I can go to capture my target audience with this? Now, depending on the industry, LinkedIn is one of them that's really great. So I'll throw something out like a real estate agent. There's so many real estate agents. There's so many people that do real estate. And you have to create something that's going to differentiate you from them and another person. Now, one of them is going to be putting out a load of content and information, but then what makes you memorable? Say, for instance, is Instagram. The way that your Instagram is laid out and the structure of it, there's a visual that's very memorable to people. Now, this is branding on the actual platform. We're not talking about billboards and everything else. Choose a platform or a couple platforms, stick with it, and then drive your branding into your audience through that platform. If it's Instagram, stay consistent with the way that things look. Stay consistent with the structure of it all, because that's what's going to keep people memorable of your brand. And then when you're talking about a specific subject, so I would recommend, if you're a real estate agent, don't just talk about buying homes in general or selling homes in general. Talk about something specific or audience in specific. If you want to talk about family homes, like husband, wife, kids, talk about that specifically and stick with it. Maybe you talk about one other thing, but keep it very narrow, because now people will recognize you for, I need a home, I need information about buying a home. Jane Doe or John Doe is known for continuously talking about how to purchase a home or how to sell my home as a family, as a wife and a kid. Like we had a client before that I was doing consulting with, and theirs were a lot based on, it wasn't real estate, it was a different industry, but it was based on people that are divorced. There's a lot of people that's divorced, just realistically. It doesn't matter if they're married again or whatever, but there's a lot of people that's divorced or separated, what have you. And that was his niche, or niche, however you say it. I say niche, I don't know. But anyway, that was his audience. And he continuously put out so much information about that information, that audience, that he had a very select group, like only 5,000, 7,000 people when you talk about followers on Instagram, but they were like loyal followers. Loyal people that went to his YouTube page and looked at all the information that he put out because it was specifically targeted towards them. So when you think about putting your brand together, don't think about doing all these commercials and having a big budget to do all these commercials. Think about 1 or 2 platforms that you're going to choose. This is where I want to create my brand on. This is what's going to be able to connect with my audience the best. This is where they're at. Okay, this is where I'm going to go. What's the message? What's the thing that we're going to talk about all the time? What's going to continuously drive and be in front of their face, and we're going to continuously talk about? Create that and then put out information about it all the time. Video content, I would prefer video content versus just images and stuff, because it is Instagram. But Instagram, YouTube, maybe it's LinkedIn. Video is ruling right now, so you have to continuously put that information out and put it in front of their face. Make sure the message comes across consistent. When I'm talking about, like, I'll go back to the corporate companies like Sprite. The product, you can recognize it all the time. Sprite has different things, but you can recognize it by the color every time. Old Spice, you recognize that whistle every single time. Allstate, you recognize the guy's voice and that slogan every single time. Stay consistent with that. You can have a different way that you present it, but always make sure that slogan or whatever it is that represents you and keeps them locked in, that brand message or that brand. What's the best way I can put it? I say brand identity, but that's what people identify you by that slogan or the way that something is presented. Keep that consistent. That's going to be one of the best things. And then one of the last things I'll mention is that this is a long-term game. So if you're a solo entrepreneur or solopreneur or small business, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to put this together, and we're going to blast it out, do not expect results in a month, 1 month, not even 3 months. I always say you have to consistently, when you consistently do it, it's going to take at least 6 months, at least. And that depends on how consistent you are and how fast you can pick up your audience. But here's the deal. The reason that it's important, because I've described a lot about what branding is, how to get across your brand message, and making something stick inside the mind of your target audience. This is the importance of it. Once you establish that brand, it increases sales and volume and trust for the long term. So it's an investment, rather be financial, sweat equity, and you're putting in time. It's an investment. But at the end of the day, what you have to realize is that once this is established and I'm consistent with it, it's gonna drive sales consistently for the future. Because right now, like Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about it a lot. I forgot how many years ago it was. I want to say he says about 5 or whatever it may be. Before he started really putting himself out there and driving a lot of traffic to himself, the sales were there, but it wasn't like it is right now, because people already have trust, because they see the same thing over and over and over and over in different ways. But the message, at the end of the day, the message is still the same. So if you get into this, you need to understand that the marketing and the advertisement that you put out to drive eyes and attention to your brand, it's a long-term game. At least 6 months. I'm not saying once you get to 6 months, you should be like, oh, all right, we're golden. This is where we're at. No. 6 months, that's when your brand should start getting a lot more, people should be a lot more familiar with it. Right? Familiarity. That's when people will start to notice it more. You're like, oh, I keep seeing this pop up. I keep seeing this show up. This isn't a quick sale, meaning I get this so much with small business owners, especially solo entrepreneurs. As soon as they invest in something, they expect a return like that. And it's, for one, with marketing and advertisement, it's realistic, but when it comes to branding, it is not realistic at all. You have to understand that. When you set up things for marketing and advertisements, it's lead funnels to get someone to make a decision quick. When you do marketing and advertisement just to get eyes on your brand, say for instance you have something and all it shows is your logo, or you have a commercial or whatever it may be, and it just talks about go to our website for X, Y, and Z, and you put that out. You want to drive traffic just to get eyes on your brand. And you continuously do that so people become familiar with it. That is completely different than from doing marketing and advertisement to funnel someone in. When you're doing branding, it's for the long term. But when you establish it, when you're consistent and you consistently put out this information in the long term, it's gonna drive your sales and it's gonna do a ton for you, so that the marketing that you do now, there's already a trust factor with it. And that lead funnel is a lot more easy for your target audience, because it's like, I'm familiar with the brand, I already know about them. I gotta do this. Grant Cardone just put out some information, and if you invest with him, I'm gonna invest with him because I know I'm more than likely gonna get an ROI. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's very well known. I'm hanging out with some friends right now, and maybe you don't drink. We'll say you're not drinking alcohol. Matter of fact, if you are drinking alcohol, I'm gonna drink some and I'm gonna mix it with Coke because I wanna enjoy the moment. Because that's the brand that they put out and they consistently do it, and you're familiar with it. So for today's show, I wanted to explain to you what branding is, especially from our perspective. For us, we build the websites. We have so many corporate companies that come to us to build out their websites so that there's brand consistency online. They need to establish these things. They know who they are internally, or they may have changes. So now we need to take that form, put that digitally, put it on a website, and consult with them on how these things need to go for social media, even physical advertisements and marketing that they put out, so that there's consistency with their brand and people recognize it and know it. I'm Daniel Griggs. This is the ATX, the brand. Thanks for tuning in. Look below. We have a lot of our other shows and episodes. Everything we talk about has to do with branding and how to structure that branding around your website and the marketing and advertisement that you do. We'll chat with you next week.